Wolverine is one of the most iconic characters in all of fiction. Over the last several decades, the man that we all know as Logan has shined on both the pages of the comics as well as big and small screens across the world. So in honor of Deadpool and Wolverine hitting $1 billion at the box office, I decided that now would be a great time to make a video detailing the legendary James Howlett. So, as a legendary warrior himself, I thought it would be interesting to put him against one of the most well-known and legendary squads in the history of Naruto, the Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist. In other words, today we'll be exploring and breaking down Wolverine versus the Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist. When doing a video on Wolverine, obviously we need to start out by properly scaling him, but before that, we need to talk about the structure of the video, as well as which version of Wolverine we'll be using. In regards to the structure, essentially we'll be having Wolverine face off against each member of the most powerful generation of the Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, except subbing in Kisame for his master. They will be alive, so not in their Edo state, so we don't have to worry about sealing or anything, and it will be gauntlet style with a full recovery between rounds. He'll have no intel or prep, but we'll treat this as if he's set on a mission to eliminate them one at a time. I could be cheap and just have him assassinate them, but that seems unfair, so we'll be having him fight them straight up. Finally, we will be doing verse equalization like I always do in my cross-verse videos, so Logan does have chakra, and we'll just say that's how his mutation functions, just for the sake of the video. As far as what version we'll be using, in order to make this as interesting as possible, I've decided the best route to go is using Wolverine from Marvel's animated universe, aka the Earth's Mightiest Heroes continuity. It is worth noting that this is a fan-made term, and there are multiple worlds within this animated universe, so the one we'll specifically be using is from Earth 8096, or the one that we get from Wolverine and the X-Men, as well as Hulk vs. Wolverine. If you haven't checked out these movies and shows in this animated universe, I strongly recommend it, but just how strong is this version of Logan? In terms of combat speed, we can get him comfortably around relativistic plus due to the fact that he's shown dodging lasers and scrapping with characters who scale to that level, such as the Hulk. Logan's attack potency, particularly with his claws, is also nothing to scoff at. He's capable of easily wounding the Hulk in his battles with him, using his claws mostly, and I will say, he does have impressive striking power as well, capable of somewhat wounding him with headbutts and such, but it's not enough to severely wound him, so the strikes themselves have been calced to large island level at most, with his claws actually getting to multi-continental levels. The reason for this is he's able to cut through the Hulk, and Hulk was capable of tanking attacks from Thor's lightning, which has been calced to those multi-continental ranges. Another notable character that Wolverine has been able to harm with his claws is Kang, who casually overpowers that same Thor, arguably getting Kang even higher. Now, I almost never do this in my videos because I think it should go without saying, but it's been brought to my attention that some people don't really understand the difference between attack potency and destructive capacity, and that's fine. I'm just going to take a second to explain it. So, Wolverine having multi-continental levels of attack potency does not mean that he can actually destroy multiple continents with one strike. Attack potency is a force equation that calculates focused force output, whereas destructive capacity just measures what level of mass or area you can actually destroy. So much like how Black Frieza is above universal levels of power, but can one-tap Goku and Vegeta, who are also universal plus, without even destroying the planet they're on, Wolverine is capable of outputting enough force required to get him to those levels without actually being able to destroy something of that size. So sorry for the tangent, I just felt it was important to cover that briefly for anyone who is unfamiliar or confused. Finally though, we have Logan's ridiculous durability and endurance. Now I put these two things together because while his adamantium skeleton is insanely durable, he does take massive damage to his actual flesh and musculature, but obviously has a crazy healing factor that allows him to keep pushing even after taking severe damage. So for most people, you would basically say their durability is this level because they're able to take this kind of attack and not take any damage or take very little damage, but with Wolverine, he can take a ton of damage and keep going, so it's worth kind of putting those together here. Due to the fact that he's able to tank blows from the Hulk, often not taking severe damage, his basic durability is easily in those large island level ranges, while his regen allows him to recover from attacks that should scale closer to those multi-continental ranges, albeit a lot of the time he does get knocked out briefly and then recover in a few moments. Now, nobody in this video is destroying his adamantium skeleton, but if they can do enough damage to him physically, to his flesh and musculature, then he will be incapacitated. It's just worth noting that, like, they're not breaking his bones. Obviously, Logan is also an incredibly skilled combatant, weapons expert, and has heightened senses, all of which will help him immensely here, but we can go over those things later as they become more important in the matchups ahead. But before we jump into our first match, if you're enjoying the video so far, or if you just don't hate Hugh Jackman, feel free to like and subscribe. If you do hate Hugh Jackman, don't like the video or subscribe. I don't want anything to do with you if that's how you feel. I am so serious right now. You may be asking yourself, who the f is Kushimaru? Well, you'll probably be saying that for a lot of them, so just buckle in. Kushimaru is the wielder of the legendary long sword called Sewing Needle. This is basically just a massive sewing needle that's attached to what appears to be a razor-sharp steel wire. With this, Kushimaru is able to mow down and mutilate numerous Shinobi Alliance members, both piercing them with the needle itself, as well as attacking with the wire, sometimes slashing limbs or even whole torsos in half by wrapping the wire around enemies and pulling it taut. The scaling for Kushimaru, as well as the other Edo members of the Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, puts them all a little bit below early war art Kakashi, but that's not really that bad when you consider that this early war version of Kakashi is easily a KCM1 Naruto rival. I mean, Kakashi is able to fight 4 level 2 state Edo Jinchuriki at once and perform better than KCM1 Naruto did against that same unit. So with KCM1 Naruto being able to outspeed A's quote-unquote fastest punch, which can be argued to be around the same tier as his lariat, which is stated to be near light speed, having the Seven Ninja Swordsmen at around relativistic plus is fine. Their AP should also be somewhat comparable, although probably a bit lower than Kakashi's, with Kakashi being able to harm Bijou with his lightning blade. I think getting their sword attacks to around large island levels of AP is solid, as Zabuza's sword strike is able to wound Kakashi, who is able to tank attacks from those same level 2 Bijou, and I think there's not really going to be anybody who's disagreeing that the level 2 Bijou are island level. So that being said, Kushimaru does have the scaling to keep up with Logan and harm him, but is there anything in his arsenal that would allow for him to defeat the 200-year-old warrior? I'd say probably not. The problem is that the longsword Kushimaru wields won't be able to do anything to Logan that he just doesn't heal from fairly quickly. Also, since Logan's adamantium claw strikes likely far outscale anything the sewing needle can output, they'd probably be able to cut right through the blade and even the wire with relative ease. If that happens, there's not really much Kushimaru can do, as the Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist are noted to be at half power without their blades. So if he does just like cut the blade in half or cut the wire and Kushimaru doesn't have that, he will be at a massive disadvantage. So Wolverine should win this with relative ease. Jinin Akabino could be more interesting, but will probably run into similar issues as Kushimaru. Although the Helm Splitter is stated to have the strongest offensive power of any of the blades, even being stated in the manga to have the capability of splitting through all defenses, I'm not sure it would really matter a ton here. I mean, first of all, that's a no limits fallacy. Obviously, there is a particular type of defense in the actual manga that just counteracts that in the Yatamir, so it very clearly can't go through all defenses. And also, the strongest substance in Naruto is adamantine, what Enma is made of when he transforms into a staff, and what the Uzumaki chains are made of. It's implied to be stronger than diamond, and quoted to be indestructible even, but the problem is, we know it's not actually indestructible. We know this because Enma outright states that Orochimaru's Kusanagi blade was bruising him while he was in the adamantine state. This same blade couldn't even pierce four-tailed Naruto's level 2 cloak, which Kakashi demonstrated he could cut through with the lightning cable. Therefore, it tracks that the adamantine staff can be broken. Adamantium is not the same. Adamantium is genuinely indestructible unless superheated to its melting point, so I do not see the Helm Splitter doing much of anything to this unbreakable skeleton that Logan wields. Since Logan scales to a similar level and Jinin has no way of countering his iconic indestructible claws, Wolverine may just slice right through the axe and make quick work of Jinin, cutting his head off. Jinpachi Munashi is the wielder of Spatter. This, I think, will be the first match when we get Logan taking significant damage. Since we're not giving Wolverine any intel, it's reasonable to assume that he may just block the blade and then subsequently take an explosion to the face. This could be an issue since we do see him get harmed by explosions, but the problem for Jinpachi though is that Logan basically shrugs these off, gets up and keeps on moving. So since we know that he likely wouldn't be put down by a single blast, I believe the next time he engages with Jinpachi, not only because of his intellect allowing him to understand, oh, these things that look like paper with scribbling on them, oh, they blow up upon impact, I should probably avoid those. Wolverine would probably be able to predict the swing and either dodge the strike or slice the blade in half with his claws. If it's the latter, it may do some damage to his arm, but due to the fact that he has regen, he would just heal from that. And the Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, again, are all stated to be at half power without their weapon, so if that happens, he just gets packed up fairly easily as well. Ameyuri Ringo is the wielder of Kiba, the twin lightning blades. With these, she not only is stated in the anime to be able to cut through anything, she can also utilize these charged weapons to stun opponents from up close or even fire electrical blasts from afar. So how does Logan deal with this challenge? Well, we have seen Wolverine affected by electrical attacks, and while he reacts better than the average human would, he does still suffer the effects of being stunned and damaged. Due to her ability to utilize the lightning blades to keep Wolverine at a distance, I do think this would be his toughest fight yet. We see in his fight against Omega Red that Logan is susceptible to being immobilized using electrical attacks, so I do think he'd have some issues dealing with her attack style. So what does he do here? I don't think that Ameyuri has the ability to put him down for good, but she can just continue to stun lock him over and over, and maybe even do enough damage to potentially make him pass out, but he would eventually wake up. So this would mean one of two things happen. One, Logan gets kept at bay, stunned in the lightning blast until it becomes a war of attrition, which Logan would win, or two, due to the extensive training as a samurai that Logan received, as well as his enhanced senses and overall combat knowledge, he probably finds a way to get around Ameyuri's attacks, getting close, and ends it. Either way, I do have him coming out of this round with a solid victory. Chojuro is the wielder of the dual-handled sword Hiramakare, and I'm not gonna lie, in just pure concussive force, I think this is the hardest hitting blade out of the bunch. With this dual blade, Chojuro is able to pour his chakra into it, form essentially any shape he likes with it, like a Green Lantern, and fire it as a concussive blast at his opponents. He also demonstrates the ability to cut Zetsu in half by using a slashing pattern to emit a sharp semicircle of energy that Zetsu notes as fast. That being said, I do think this allows for Chojuro to not only damage Wolverine with slicing attacks, but also potentially KO him with concussive blasts. The fact that he was able to knock a fatigued Sasuke with his Susanoo ribcage up through a wall tells me that this Sasuke probably thought he needed the ribcage in order to block it, since keeping it up is causing immense pain and draining his chakra rapidly. So if he does land a direct blow on Logan, he straight up might just knock him out. But this is a guy who has tanked punches from the Hulk, and also Chojuro wasn't able to crack the Susanoo ribcage from a weaker Sasuke than the one who did get his Susanoo ribcage cracked by A. A is implied to be like a Bijou level combatant, so since the Bijou scale to that continental to multi-continental range, and we know for sure that Chojuro is below that, and we know for sure that Logan is able to tank attacks on that level, I just don't think that any of these are going to put him out for good. But even if he does knock him out, right, some of the punches from the Hulk did knock him out momentarily as well, but he always gets up and keeps fighting. And this is where the problem will come in. Chojuro's strength is directly stated to be connected to his confidence. I mean, he was shaking in his boots against Sasuke because he was on a team that brought down Zabuza. Now imagine he puts everything he has into a sledgehammer attack, blasts Wolverine several hundred feet away, and goes to walk away. But then, as he takes his second step, he hears, "Hey bub, this ain't over." You know, like, genuinely, I think that Chojuro does have the advantage here stylistically, as he would be able to knock out Logan, he'd be able to, drown him with water style potentially, he's got ranged attacks with the slicing techniques that he uses. However, once he sees Wolverine get back up from a couple of his strongest attacks, his confidence will begin to wane, and he will fold. So, Due to fear hacks, Logan wins this fairly easily. This begins the section that everyone is here for. These next 3 matches are where we get to the place where Logan actually runs the risk of dying. Allow me to explain why. Not only does Zabuza wield the Executioner's Blade, the 6-foot blade utilized specifically for assassination, he's also the most skilled ninjutsu user to this point on the list. While the others prior to him on this list are also skilled users of silent killing, he's the one who cast the Hidden Mist while they were all Edo, and none of them are listed as users of the technique, nor do we know if they would use it in character, even though they probably do know how to cast it. In addition to that, his blade is the only one so far that may be able to slice between his joints. Sure, the Helm Splitter has a sharp enough edge to do it, but that's not really how he typically uses it. I mean, it is called the Helm Splitter. So, meanwhile, Zabuza 100% in character would use Hidden Mist, sneak behind Logan and aim for vital points, potentially cutting between the vertebrae in his neck, beheading him. There are some problems with this though. Number 1, we see that he aims for vital points in terms of organs, not beheadings. Second, Wolverine doesn't need sight or hearing to find you. He can do it with smell alone. So if Zabuza attempts to use silent killing, Logan would probably realize what he's doing, wait for him to begin his strike, turn around, killing him with a stab to the chest. And even if Zabuza does manage to get him one time, it's probably going to be something that gets blocked by the adamantium skeleton, and then he's just kind of screwed because, just like Kakashi did putting his blood on Zabuza's blade, now Logan has his blood on Zabuza's blade and would be able to sniff him out with any future sneak attacks. The second coming of the demon, Mangetsu Hozuki. This dude is a problem. Not only is he capable of using all of the legendary blades that make up the Seven Ninja Swordsmen's arsenal, he also has ninjutsu that probably hard counters Logan pretty badly. Since Mangetsu is the first to master all 7 blades, it tracks that he's probably the most skilled kenjutsu user of them all, meaning that anything the others can do, he should be able to somewhat replicate as well. That paired with the fact that he can liquefy himself like Suigetsu does, with the only noted weakness to this being lightning style ninjutsu, I don't think Logan has any win cons here. Meanwhile, Mangetsu could literally just phase through every attack Wolverine launches his way via liquefaction, make 6 water clones giving each of them a blade, and then just piece up Logan till eventually he's able to cut his head off or beat him down enough to where his healing factor stops working. We know that this is something that happens in the comics. It probably tracks that this happens in the animated universe as well. So as much as I love Logan, I think this is where he fails. Maybe you could argue that if he had his hot claws like he does in the comics, he would counter the liquefaction, but this version of Logan definitely does not have that, so Wolverine falls to the master of the legendary 7 blades. This one should be fairly obvious. Kisame should scale a little bit higher in terms of combat speed, as he scales to 6th Gate Guy, who scales to Raikiri Kakashi, and Raikiri Kakashi was capable of blitzing Zabuza. I mean, if you analyze this panel, Zabuza's arm gets cut off and moves forward in front of him, which means that Kakashi likely, when utilizing the Raikiri, went through Zabuza's arm first and then hit him in the chest, so this is just like a massive combat speed blitz tier, and if Kisame scales to this level, he should just be above Logan. In addition to that, this dude also has massive scale ninjutsu that Logan has no answer for. He has the means to take him out via drowning or just absorbing all of his chakra, and should be able to recover from anything Logan does to him, aside from decapitation. I mean, could you imagine Logan goes to square off with him and then 1,000 hungry sharks, or he floods the entire battlefield with water that he can control at will, or I mean, God forbid, he goes into the fusion state with the giant bubble. I mean, there are a million different things that he can do here. I do think that a possible avenue for Logan to win is by cutting Samehada in half the first time Kisame uses it, charging, and then, in the surprise, taking his head off, but that would require a decent speed advantage that I don't think he has here, and quite a bit of luck as well. So, Kisame wins here, taking down the Wolverine with relative ease. In conclusion, Logan deals with all of the legendary swordsmen until he gets to the two top dogs. I will say that if we were to use basically any of the comic variants, Logan probably wins against all of them, as he'd most certainly outscale them in terms of speed and would have access to other abilities like his Hot Claws, which could help him overcome the main disadvantage that he has against Mangetsu. Also, if we did this a little bit differently and we gave him any sort of prep or intel, his tactical mind is far better than any of theirs, so I'd say he probably would win in that scenario as well. But that being said, that's it for this video. Next week, I'll be back with another Crossverse video in a collab with Satori titled Gon, Killua, and Kurapika versus the Sasuke Retrieval Mission. Hope you guys are as excited as I am, but if you enjoyed this video, remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out when new content drops. And if you made it this far, I'd just like to say thank you. I greatly appreciate it, and until next time, have an awesome day.